This conference will now be recorded.
So today we'll see the installation of Linux. We require two softwares. One is VMware Workstation. The other one is either Red Hat or CentOS. Yesterday I told you that both are product of Red Hat. CentOS is a freeware. Red Hat is a enterprise license software. Version 9. ISO file. They are the softwares we required for installation of operating system. Generally, we can install operating system on laptop directly on physical hardware. But the problem, if you install the operating system on physical hardware, in your lab already Windows installed. You have Windows already installed. On the same laptop, if you install Linux, Linux override Windows. Linux override Windows and install Linux operating system. Any hard disk, you cannot install more than one operating system, any single disk. Only one OS we can install. So in that case, what we have to do is make it two physical partition. Hard disk make it two physical partition. One physical partition for Windows, another physical partition for Linux. You have a hard disk 500 GB or 1 TB. Make two physical partition. In the first physical partition, install Windows, any Microsoft family. In the second physical partition, install Linux. You have 500 GB hard disk. Make it two physical partition, one for Windows, one for Linux. So at the time of booting, it provides interface asking that do you want to boot from Red Hat Linux or do you want to boot from Windows? It provides this kind of interface while booting from which OS you want to boot. Do you want to boot from Red Hat Linux or Windows? Default is Red Hat Linux. Wait for 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, directly boot from Red Hat Linux. You want to boot from Windows, select Windows. We can boot from Windows. So how to install more than one operating system in a single disk? Make it two physical partitions. You can also install more than two. How many? Maximum 4 operating systems can be installed. The concepts I'll explain later. So if at all you want to install in a single laptop two operating systems, make it two physical partitions, your hard disk, one for Windows, one for Linux. First install Windows in the first physical partition and install Linux in the second physical partition. So that while booting, you can see the interface from which OS you want to boot. But the problem here is simultaneously we can't able to work more than one operating system. Simultaneously, we can work more than one operating system. If I am in Windows, I can't able to see Linux. If I am in Linux, I can't able to see Windows. At a time, we can boot only one operating system. That is a problem. Another problem is wastage of hardware resources. For example, my laptop have one CPU, 16 GB RAM. When I'm booting from Windows, I might be using maximum 1 or max 2 GB RAM. Remaining 14 GB is unused. I can reboot it, boot from Linux. I can use maximum 1 or 2 GB RAM. Remaining 14 GB is unused. Wastage of hardware resources. That's why nowadays we are not using this. So this is called traditional virtualization. What's the meaning of virtualization? Physically only one system, one laptop, one desktop, but it is acting as a Windows, it is acting as a Linux. Otherwise, I have to purchase two laptops, one for Windows, one for Linux. Because in a single disk, we cannot install more than one operating system. Purchase two laptops, one for Windows, one for Linux. Each laptop costs 50,000. You have to invest 1 lakh rupees. Instead of that, make two physical partition, one for Windows, one for Linux. Laptop only one, acting as a Windows, acting as a Windows and acting as a Linux. That is called virtualization. Physically, only one laptop acting as a two laptops. What type of virtualization? Traditional virtualization. What are the problems with the traditional virtualization? Simultaneously, we can't boot more than one operating system and wastage of hardware resources. A company called VMware in 2009 they introduced a VMware virtualization. In Windows, we have a client OS and server OS. We have client and server OS. Likewise, here also we have a client and server. Client we call VMware Workstation. Server we call ESXi. This is called server. Workstation generally we use for laptops. Laptops are desktops. VMware server we are going to use in the real time, in the real service. Application server, web servers, mail servers. So this is the real servers we are going to use VMware server. So we are going to install Red Hat CentOS 9 in your laptop. Before that, first install the VMware workstation. So in this workstation, I installed multiple Linux operating systems, more than one. So so you have a laptop. This is the hardware. On top of the hardware, install operating system. install OS, Windows. On top of that, install VMware Workstation. So what is VMware Workstation? VMware Workstation is a software. It's a software to virtualize your hardware. It's a software to virtualize your hardware. Generally, you want to install the operating system, laptop or desktop or any server. What are the hardware components you require? I need a CPU processor, RAM, hard disk, monitor, keyboard, mouse, network card, DVD, motherboard. All these are physical hardware in your laptop. So to install the operating system, we need this hardware. So this hardware already available in your laptop. What this VMware software does, it is going to virtualize your hardware. So we call it as virtual CPU, virtual RAM, virtual disk, virtual monitor, virtual keyboard, whatever hardware physical available in your laptop, it is going to virtualize the hardware and create one server to you. This is called VM. VM stands virtual machine. Why it is called virtual machine? Your hardware is not physical, your hardware is virtual. It is going to create a virtual hardware from the physical hardware. So before we start installation of operating system, we have to create a virtual machine. Create a virtual machine. On top of that, we are going to install Linux. Create another VM, create another operating system. Like that, we can create multiple VMs and install multiple operating systems. You have 16 GB RAM. For each VM, we can dedicate 2 GB or 3 GB, whichever you want. We can dedicate the memory for every virtual machine. In the real time, we have a server with 32 CPUs, 64 CPUs, 128 CPUs. We are going to dedicate one CPU for every virtual machine. So this is how this VM works. So initially, we have to create a virtual machine. So click on File, create a new virtual machine. Create new virtual machine. Default is typical, select custom, advanced, click on next. Take default, click on next. Select I will install operating system later. I'll install operating system later. Click on next. Guest operating system, select Linux. Guest OS, select Linux. Version, you can set the version here. Click on Dropbox. Set the version Red Hat or CentOS, both are same. Click on next. Where do you want to create this virtual machine? Default is C drive. If you don't have space in the C drive, go to browse. If you have multiple drives, go to browse. Select D drive wherever we have a free space. Click on OK. Default, you can take default C drive if you have enough space. Click on next. Number of processor take default to course or 1, take default. Next. RAM 2 GB minimum recommended. Minimum recommended. Minimum 2 GB recommended 4 GB. Minimum 2 GB recommended 4 GB. Click on next. Network connection take default NAT. Click on next. IO controller take default LSI logic. Click on next. Virtual disk takes KZ or SATA. Click on next. Take default create a new virtual disk. Click on next. Size, how much size you want? Take default 20 GB. Click on next. Name of the disk file take default. Next. Then finish. So VM is created. Memory, processor, hard disk, DVD, network card. All these are virtual hardware. Now system is ready, laptop is ready, desktop is ready. You can install operating system. Earlier days we used to use CD-ROM drives, DVDs, but CD-ROM drives, DVDs are outdated. In place of that, we are using ISO image. You can download this ISO image from internet. Otherwise, I'll share the link. From that link, you can download it. Attach that ISO file to this virtual machine. Click on edit. Select CD DVD. Click on use ISO image file. Go to browse. Set the ISO file. By default, when you download it, under downloads folder, go to downloads folder. Click on the ISO file. Click on OK. Now click on power on this virtual machine. Press Ctrl Alt plus Enter. Ctrl plus Alt plus Enter for full screen. Ctrl plus Alt plus Enter for full screen. Select first option. Install CentOS. To convert half screen to full screen. Same to convert full screen to half screen. So again, Control Alt plus Enter half screen. Control Alt plus Enter full screen. Yeah. Select English, click on continue. Language support, installation destination, click on installation destination. Take default automatic. We'll discuss later custom after completion of basic commands. Automatic for freshers or beginners. Custom is for experts. So take default automatic, click on done, click on language support, take default, click on software selection. Default is server with graphical mode. Server with graphical mode GUI mode takes more time to install. Select minimal install. Minimal install, no graphical, no desktop, only CLI, command line. Select minimal install for command line. This will discuss later, graphical mode. If you want, take default graphical mode also, as you wish. Time and date. Click on time and date. Select Kolkata. You can also select from here region and city. Click on done. Click on root password. Click on root password. This is the password for root account. Root is administrator login name. Give any password. I'm giving the password as Red Hat. Click on done. Click on user creation. Create any user as you wish. Click on done. Click on begin installation. So once install operating system, reboot it. Click on reboot. So if it is AWS, we don't require all this. Everything is automation. In AWS, all the servers are virtual machines. No physical